Okay, so for the first part of this year, we'll be going over some things that you should already know, but we need to make sure you're really solid at before we move on into geometry, into some things that you don't know. The first thing we're going to look at is algebraic expressions and evaluating those expressions. This is really important with geometry that we know how to do this first, because what we're going to do is we're going to take this and solve theorems and proofs and things like that, and we're going to need to be really good at this. So in order to evaluate algebraic expressions, you need to be really good with the order of operations. One of the most common mistakes I see are students who don't know the order of operations and neglect those, and then they get problems wrong because of that. So we always know, and here it's listed out as far as steps in this table. Another easy way to remember the order of operations is please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. I'm sure you've heard that before. Okay, and what that means is P is for parentheses, E is exponent, so like x squared or something like that. MRD is the next one, that's multiplication or division. You go left to right for that. And then addition or subtraction. Again, that's another left to right. So let's go ahead and dive into this first example. Let's look at part A. So we're supposed to evaluate the following expression if K is -2, N is -4, and P is 5. So the first step is always just to plug these in. Now, what I see with students a lot of times is they want to try to do all of this in their head, and they end up missing a step or forgetting to change a negative or something like that, and then they get the problem wrong. So it really is a good idea to just go ahead and at least write the complete first step out. And as you can see, all I've done so far is substituted K, N, and P, my variables, with their value. So now we can go ahead and dive in. We have 2 times -2. A negative times a positive is always a negative, so that's -4. Minus, because a positive and a negative is still negative, 4 over 5 minus 3, which we know is 2. So this equals -8 over 2, which reduces to a -4. Okay, easy enough. Not bad, just be careful with those negatives. Let's go ahead and look at part B now. Again, we're just going to go ahead and plug in our values. We have K is -2 squared plus 2 times N, which is -4. Okay, so again, this is where we've got to be careful with the order of operations. We have -3. -2 squared is a +4, not -4, plus 2 times -4, which is -8. Alright, we're going to evaluate those parentheses first. So that's -3, 4 plus -8 is -4. Alright, always do parentheses first if you can. And then we have -3 times -4, which we know is just a +12. Because negative is always positive. Okay, so now we're going to look at our last example. Our last example has absolute values, and you should already know this, but the absolute value of a negative number is always positive, and then the absolute value of a positive A is still just positive. Okay, so absolute value signs, take a negative and make it a positive. Alright, so let's go ahead and evaluate this. We have 3 times the absolute value of -2 minus RB, which is a -4, plus 2 times C, which is 3, minus 5. Okay, now we don't take that absolute value until we reduce what is inside of it. Once we reduce what's inside, then we can take the absolute values. So we have 3 absolute value of -2 minus a -4. So this becomes plus. So -2 plus 4 is a +2. Plus 2 times the absolute value of 3 minus 5, which is negative 2. Okay, so this becomes 3 times 2, which is 6, plus 2 times 2, because the absolute value of negative 2 is positive 2, which is 4. So our answer here is 10. Alright, so that's it for algebraic expressions. Now, if you would complete your practice and then come up to my desk and get your mastery check.